to welcome all of you to the convocation this afternoon. It's indeed a privilege to welcome Peyton Manning to DePauw today, and we are thankful, as always, to Tim and Sharon Ubben for making this visit possible. Peyton Manning was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, really for those of you who follow sports, into a sports family, a football family. His father, Archie Manning, was a quarterback for the University of Mississippi and then went on to be a quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Mr. Manning attended Newman High School in New Orleans. It was there he went to excel as a quarterback. In fact, in high school, he only lost 5 games and won 34. And we found out at lunch, or in the session this morning, then you only lost 6 games, I think you said, in college. Despite some urging from his father's alma mater, the University of Mississippi, Peyton Manning chose to attend the University of Tennessee and majored in speech communications. While he was playing for the Tennessee Volunteers, he became an All-American quarterback. Naturally, after his junior season, there was a great deal of pressure on him to leave school early and enter the NFL. But being the reflective, thoughtful person that he is, Peyton Manning decided to finish his education. I might add, much to the relief of the Tennessee Volunteers. In his senior year, Mr. Manning finished runner-up in the Heisman Trophy voting, and he's the only football player in the University of Tennessee history to have his number retired by the school. He started for 4 years, set 33 school records and 8 SEC records. Most of us in Indiana know him as an Indianapolis Colt, a 3-time Pro Bowler, and last year's most valuable player of the National Football League. But he's been active and an outstanding person not only on the football field, but he has set an example for other athletes by being so active in his community. He began the Payback Foundation, which grants money to disadvantaged children in Indianapolis and New Orleans and Tennessee. In fact, the foundation has given over $900,000 to disadvantaged children. And I'm pleased to say he serves on the Board of Trustees of the Center for Leadership Development in Indianapolis with Dennis Bland, its president. And Dennis, as we were chatting before we came out, is an outstanding DePauw graduate. Peyton, it's a delight to have you at DePauw today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. As I was driving over here from Indianapolis in my car, every time I'm traveling on the road, it seems like I get reminded of this elderly couple that I know. The wife used to get real nervous when her husband went out driving around, so she bought him a car phone one day. And one particular afternoon, the husband was out driving around, and the wife calls him on this car phone and said, "Honey, I was just thinking about you. I'm watching the news right now, and they said there's a car out there on the interstate driving the wrong way." He said, "A car? There must be 100 of them out here." But I am very pleased to join all of you this afternoon at the campus of DePauw University. I had the privilege of attending another fine university, the University of Tennessee, and those days on campus for me were amongst the most enjoyable and the most stimulating of my life. And I know from my time there in Knoxville what an important role the university played in the greater Knoxville community. And that's a role that DePauw plays here, and a role that I hope each of you supports. I want to begin by thanking President Bottoms for that wonderful introduction and Mr. Ubben for his support of this lecture series. I also enjoyed getting a chance to visit with Coach Lynch and his football players just a few minutes ago, talking to them, and I want to wish them the best of luck the rest of their season. Any chance I get to talk to young people, it just reminds me also, I was home this past summer back in New Orleans. We get a little bit of free time in the month of July, and one of my best friends from high school is a coach of a Little League baseball team, 7- and 8-year-old Little League baseball team, and he asked me if I would come and talk at their banquet. They were having their Little League banquet at the end of the season. Asked if I'd come and hand out trophies and talk to the team. I said, "Boy, that'd be fun. I'd like to do it." He said, "Well, how much are you going to charge us?" I said, at ball, and you're my best friend from high school. We're talking to 7- and 8-year-old kids here. I said, I'd be glad to do it. I'm not going to charge you anything. He said, oh, great, Peyton. We'll just save our money and get a better speaker next year. But it's always very exciting for me to be in the midst of people who think big, people who have a vision for themselves and their respective organizations. 100 years ago, the Wright brothers also had aspirations, dreams of achievement. They believed that they could fly, but more important than that, they believed that they should fly. And the first heavier-than-air plane lifted off the ground with Orville in the pilot's seat about a century ago. And both Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, were there that day, and both of them wanted to pilot that plane. They actually flipped a coin to decide who would ride in the pilot's seat first. Wilbur ran alongside, steadying the wing as the plane took off. I bet old Wilbur felt a lot like the Colts offense does when we lose the coin toss and our defense has to go on first. But as someone once said, the Wright brothers flew right through the smoke screen of impossibility. You think about it, for leaders, believing is just the start. That's when the hard work begins to remove the obstacles that keep those beliefs from becoming a reality. Frankly, there are a lot of people in this world who believe there's a huge gap between what they would like to do and what they are able to do. And I just don't understand that. Because if you don't stretch, you cannot grow. And if you don't grow, then others are going to pass you by. And so many others are going to pass you by that you're going to end up standing on the sidelines watching them play the game. Now don't get me wrong, folks, we need fans in the stands. That makes the game that much more fun to play. But you have to decide, do you want to make things happen or do you want to watch things happen? And I've found that people who watch things happen are usually left wondering just what happened. Let's face it, football is a game, but for me and the others who make up the National Football League, it's also our profession. And there's a lot more to succeeding in the NFL than most people think. A big part of my life is spent on the football field, a field with very clear boundaries, very strict rules, and no margins for error. Yet it's that same field that has forever broadened my experience, widened my perspective, and given me the space to run toward my most distant goals. Success changes as surely as the seasons do. It's a journey, and the goals that we reach correspond directly to the distances that we're willing to go. In my opinion, our rewards are directly proportional to the efforts that we make. In college, my business teachers use the term ROI, return on investment. Football coaches call it working your butt off. Growing up, my family often spoke in terms of climbing to the top of a mountain because no one just lands on its summit. But no matter what words or images are used, it all really amounts to making the conscious choice to keep going, to keep doing a lot more, or in some instances, even an incremental amount more than is asked of us, than is expected of us, or more than our competitors are willing to do. It's really about not quitting at quitting time. In my mind, hard work, discipline, and commitment, you hear those three terms all the time, they are at the root of success. And reality is built on the commitment that you make. And that's the foundation from which a winner is made. But commitment is not enough. You also have to have a clear sense of direction. I found it so much easier to focus on my goals and to keep my concentration sharp when my priorities are clear in my own mind. People accomplish the most, in my opinion, when they direct their desires instead of ignoring them. And I make it a very clear habit to have a clear direction for myself. Each week before Sunday's game, about 2 hours before kickoff, Marvin Harrison and I go out onto the field and do what we called our pre-game routine. And we throw about 17 passes, and we call it the passing tree, and we have it memorized. And we can do the whole thing without talking. We just go out there, we throw. If the ball touches the ground, which it rarely does, we'll repeat that pass pattern and do it without talking, and it just puts us both in a very clear frame of mind. It gives us good visual pictures of what's about to happen there once the game starts. We do it every week, done it for 7 years, and it makes a big difference in how we play on Sundays. And I also like to take notes on everything. I'm not a Palm Pilot guy. I'm more of a notebook and a Post-it note kind of guy. And I think writing things down helps create a blueprint to guide you through the ups and downs of life. And chances are you'll find yourself referring to this a lot and being reassured by its consistency on those days when it's hard to know what you can count on. It's kind of like having your own personal compass to get you back on track when you find yourself starting to wander. My compass keeps me grounded to my faith, my family, football, my job, and my friends. My father always called this concept getting back to zero. He'd say after a bad play, an interception, God forbid, you have to put it out of your mind and focus on the play in front of you. It's the same as making a bad personal or professional decision, having a bad day at the office, a bad sale, or a failed attempt at anything. You have to acknowledge it, learn from it, and then erase it from your mind so it doesn't drag you further down. You have to get back to level zero. Because when we're truly clear about our ambitions and priorities, it's all easier to remember that we have to approach our goals yard by yard. And that's just on the good days. Other times move forward just inch by inch. But the key is to stay headed in that right direction, to maintain our focus and not be deterred from our ultimate destination. Along the way, we all have different roles to fulfill, different parts of our lives to juggle. In the business of the NFL, when times are good, they're great. And when they're not good, they're horrible. I'm sure it's no different in your business than it is in mine. But it takes resilience to handle the ups and downs, to sustain the ups as long as possible, and be sure that the downs are as short as possible. When you think about it, everybody knows that no success or failure is ever final. Strategy and planning can be pretty simplistic when compared to execution. Napoleon Bonaparte explained execution this way: if the mountain won't bend, then you bend the road, and if the road won't bend, then bend yourself. Last year we had a game down in Tampa Bay. We found ourselves down 35-14 with about 3 minutes and 40 seconds to play. Now we ended up coming back and winning this game, and some of our players said, yeah, we had them all along, and they're just flat lying, I can promise you that. Because with 3 minutes and 50 seconds to go against that defense, it did not look very good for the white and blue. But we had some breaks along the way, which I believe the team that plays the hardest is going to get more of the breaks. But the key thing we did during that situation was we maintained our composure. We took each play, one play at a time, kept our composure, and just found a way to kind of inch and grind back into the game, and came back with one of the greatest comebacks of all time. And in the heat of competition, it can be really hard to maintain your composure. It requires controlling emotions instead of letting them control you. And I've come to the point where I can honestly say that I'm able to live in the moment during high pressure situations instead of being overwhelmed by them. I look at it this way: I have a job to do. I have to help my offense score every time we're out there on the field. I want the ball in the fourth quarter when the game is on the line, the clock is ticking, and every second matters. It's what my team needs me to do, it's what I'm paid to do, it's what I've trained to do. So there really are no excuses. However, we all know lots of people who shy away and in fact do everything that they can to not be on the line when that tough decision has to be made. You'd be amazed at how many guys in the NFL who, despite their macho image, don't want to be put in that position. In football, you work with all types of personalities: lazy players, scared players, guys who are more show than substance. I'm sure it sounds familiar in your respective businesses. But frankly, I look at things just a little bit differently, because waiting around for someone else to make the play is just not an option. I have to be willing to take a risk. I have to be willing to stay in the pocket or run when the stakes are high. You have to be willing to take a chance, even when you have doubts. Everyone fumbles every now and then, but not everyone has the stamina or the gumption to get up and get back into the game. When you take risks, some will work, others won't. The key is to learn from them all, to look at failures and figure out how things can be done better or smarter the next time. And if you're lucky, you may get another opportunity right then and there to turn things around. The way I see it, the greatest risk isn't in taking the wrong action. It's in letting our fears prevent us from acting at all. And taking a risk does not mean going against the team approach. In fact, it's a lot easier to go out onto a limb when you know you have the support of trusted teammates, buddies who will back you up and catch you when you fall. Being part of a team, working for common goals, being ready to support each other when times are tough, those are some of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had. We're all motivated, inspired, and encouraged by others. and I believe I'm successful when my team is successful. I can't stand it when people say, well, I did my part, but the defense didn't do theirs. My response to that person is, well, you should have done more. And that's especially true when those things we become used to and those that we've mastered change right then and there in front of us. I know the anxiety that I feel when we played a team that we have not yet played before. Athletes are in large part creatures of habit. A new opponent means a new game plan. The conditions, right down to the weather, the stadium, the playing surface, they all can make a dramatic difference. I never want to fail, but I know that I will from time to time. And in my business, it's not okay to lose football games. For me, and probably for many of you too, the risk versus reward factor can be really high, but we cannot afford to fear failure. We have to become mentally tough enough to live through it. One of the hardest things a quarterback has to do is learn from his mistake, to let go of it fast enough so it won't drag you further down. And the same goes for other professionals. Whether you fumble, you lose a major deal, or you have a major setback, we have to quickly refocus and get right back into that game. And then, of course, there's preparation. I believe that in today's fast-changing environment, thorough preparation is absolutely essential. I know better than anyone else what my strengths and weaknesses are, and I really try to work on both. Too many people are afraid to work on their weaknesses. The great Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Chuck Noll once said this about preparation. He said that pressure is something that you feel only when you don't know what you're doing. I don't just focus on my job. I study the entire game and make it my business to know everything there is to know about our offense, because knowing the big picture helps me make critical adjustments during a game. And that's basically knowledge management, football style. I consider it my job as a leader of the team to be aware of everything that I possibly can. I have to be aware of every guy on the field. I can't throw every pass to the same receiver, even though Marvin Harrison thinks that I should. I have to keep all the other wide receivers happy and keep them mentally in the game, because to win, everyone has to feel involved. And it makes no difference whether you're in the NFL, banking, or running a household, or here in school. Strategy, planning, and execution are all critical. We need all three legs of the stool, because without any one of them, it's going to tip over. Did you know that Post-it notes were created because of a problem with the glue that didn't stick? The person working on the project realized by looking at it another way, he can invent something brand new that could be used in offices, homes, and classrooms around the world. There's an acronym that essentially sums up my approach to winning. It says WIN, W-I-N, stands for what I noticed. What I noticed that was different, what I noticed that was important, what I noticed that could help me achieve a specific goal. I believe that when you get serious about what you notice and how you respond to it, individuals and organizations and institutions significantly increase their chances of success. Because if you make even the smallest attempt at looking closely at something, it's fairly easy to determine what, if anything, is different. Then make a point of noticing what is different that also has the ability to make a real difference. And the third ingredient of winning is noticing something that can make a difference and can move you toward a specific chosen goal. There have been a lot of times in a game where I've seen something during the game that I saw at 10:30 at night on a Wednesday watching film of the upcoming opponent, and it makes a difference right then and there in that ball game on Sunday. W-I-N, win. Post-it notes and touchdowns that can help win a game are direct results of someone noticing what was different, that had the potential to make an impact, and which would take them toward their goal. But it is not enough to look outward, folks. You have to look inward as well. It's important to know yourself, because there is real power in that self-discovery. Do you have the guts to risk it all and dare to do it again and again and again? Are you willing to doubt yourself and be humble enough to stay on track when things are going wrong? Because leadership requires mental toughness. Leaders are, and they always will be, challenged. Some people will rise to that challenge, others will not. However, the attitude with which we approach the situation can determine our ultimate success or failure. I look at everything as if it's possible, because winners look for stepping stones and not stumbling blocks. Look for ways to learn from what happened and then move on. And I want to be a leader, and to be an effective leader really starts with being responsible. That means having the ability to respond to the competition and the willingness to be responsible for your actions. When I run into the huddle, I have to have the edge and the instinct and the courage to make the tough calls. And I have to trust myself that I've done everything possible to prepare myself for that challenging role. But more importantly than that, my team has got to trust me. They have to believe that I know or can at least find a way to score. They also have to recognize that despite being the leader, I cannot do it alone. I need them to make it happen. I remember the first time I ran into the huddle as a college football player. I was a freshman at the University of Tennessee. We were playing out in Los Angeles against UCLA. There's about 90,000 people in the stands, and Keith Jackson and Bob Greasy are broadcasting the game on ABC national television. I'm just kind of glad to be on the sidelines watching my first college game in my cool orange and white uniform. And on the 7th play of the game, our starting quarterback tears his knee up. He's out for the year. Our backup quarterback was a baseball player, a guy named Todd Helton, who really didn't want to be playing football. Already had a baseball signing bonus on his mind, but he was just on the team. So anyway, long story short, it's 21-0. We're getting beat in an upset type of game, and the coach comes over to me and says, "Peyton, you're going to play today." And I didn't really think I was nervous. I looked down and all the hair on my arms was just sticking straight up. So I'm getting ready to go into the game here, and like I said, our team is just devastated because our quarterback's out for the year. All these seniors are thinking it's going to be just a miserable season. So I'm jogging into this huddle, and right then and there I remember something that my dad had told me. He said, "Son, if you ever get into the game or get in that huddle with the starters, I don't care whether it's in practice, in the fourth quarter of a game that's a blowout, you have got to be a leader. You're 18 years old. Most of these seniors are 22, 23 years old. You have got to be a leader and take control of that huddle. That is your job as the quarterback." So right then I remembered old Dad's advice. So I go in and I jog in that huddle. I said, "All right, here we go, guys. I know I'm just a freshman, but I could take you down the field right now and lead you to a touchdown. Let's go." And right then our big left tackle, Jason Lehman, about 6'5", 330, grabs me by the shoulder and says, "Hey, freshman, shut the blank up and call the blank and play." And I said, "Yes, sir." And great advice, Dad, great advice. But I'm a very competitive person, and I learned long ago that if you really have the fire to win, it's not going to be easy. It's hard to accomplish anything without competition. And I just don't use one definition for success. To me, it's not just about wins or losses or who has the best statistics. Ultimately, it's about reaching our potential as players and, yes, as a team. I can assure you there's nothing quite like winning. I'm only a football player, but I am a football player who cares and one who is committed to making a difference. And I'll leave you today with the words of someone whose name I do not know, but whose thoughts I think everyone here should consider. Risk more than others think is safe, care more than others think is wise, dream more than others think is practical, and expect more than others think is possible. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
For the next few moments, Peyton Manning has agreed to take questions from the audience, and so we have a microphone in either of these two aisles. We won't spend the afternoon, but we have time for a few questions. So if you would come up to one of our coaches with your question, Mr. Manning will be glad to respond.
We have a question here. Thanks for coming to talk to us. Why do you think you have more freedom and control of your offense than any other quarterback in the league? How fortunate do you feel to play for a coaching staff and offensive coordinator that has this much trust in your abilities? And does this create any added pressure on you to perform?
Well, it's a lot of responsibility. I do feel fortunate to be playing this offense because it is fun. It's fun to be able to call some of your own plays, and you have a lot of responsibility. It's funny, you know, in pro football, our helmets, we have this little, earpiece microphone in our helmets, and so the coach can call the plays into you, and it cuts off at 15 seconds on the play clock. I used to think they could tell you who to throw to as you're dropping back, or tell you, hey, get down, you're about to get killed. And but it cuts off at 15 seconds, and so a little technique I've learned is, because there's always static problems with any kind of communication system. So every now and then you kind of give them this, I didn't get it, and so you can call your own play. And so anytime you do that, that's what that means. So. It is, and I tell you what, it's a result really of my offensive coordinator and I. We've been together for now 7 years, and the trust that he kind of has for me, and so I've really tried to earn that trust. But I can call my own plays, but I can't really surprise them. I'm not allowed to call the double reverse pass back to the quarterback. I have to kind of keep it within the system, but it's a fun offense to play in.
Controlling your emotions instead of letting emotions control you. In those pressure-filled situations, how do you exhibit a lot of confidence out on the field, and how do you stay confident in your abilities, and how do you train that yourself?
It's very tough to train. I think the key is to have some experience, hopefully in football as a young player, so you can refer back to that situation later on. Same way in business. And for me, it was my rookie year where a couple of times we had those situations where I didn't perform like I would have liked, and I probably got a little overly excited, and I was saying, wow, it's the fourth quarter, it's 2 minutes to go, I got to do something special, as opposed to just doing my job like I did in the first 3 quarters. And so because of the experience that I had as a young player, I take a game like a Tampa Bay game, now we can refer back to that situation at any given time. We're down by 7 or 14. I say, hey guys, we were down 21 to Tampa last year, we did it, so let's just stay calm and go through it. So, but for a young player, it can be difficult because he just hasn't been in that situation before. So I hate to say that you're going to have to fail before you become a success in that situation, but experience is the best teacher in that situation, and I've just learned from my different experiences.
Everyone in this room knows that you are not just a football player. Thank you very much for being such a wonderful role model. My question is that you're at the height of your career right now and you are a football player, but have you given any thought to what you may do after you retire from football?
I have a little bit. Sometimes we'll have some players, in our locker room, maybe some offensive linemen, and they're talking about that. I'll see them on the phone, or maybe they have something in front of them. They're talking about kind of their jobs after they finish football, and I kind of look at them like, you ain't doing your current job all that good, blocking a little better, we might be winning a few more games. So I guess part of me feels so obligated to my current job, to my teammates, to my owner, because these days obviously they pay you a lot of money, and so I carry it with me everywhere I go as far as trying to do my job for my teammates, my coaches, my owner, and our whole staff. But I was a communications major in college, and I enjoyed doing this. I enjoyed doing public speaking, and I only get to do it, Tuesdays is our off day and some in the off season. I like to do some more of that after I finish playing. Broadcasting is what a lot of players have joined after they finish playing. I don't know if I could do that now, because the broadcasters today, it's almost like they forgot that they actually played, the way they talk and the way they say things. I think sometimes the producers tell them what to say as opposed to them really voicing their true opinions. But I like to play. I've played 6 years. I like to play about another 10 years if I can, hopefully all with one team. That's kind of been my goal all along, to stay with one team. Although I was telling the football team earlier, I think it'd be fun if I could play another 10 years here, then maybe go play 2 years and back up my little brother Eli for 2 years and just second guess every decision he makes, and sub myself in for him when he's playing bad. That'd be kind of fun. So that's kind of my goal. Football's been such a big part of my life. I doubt that I'll be a coach, because the hours on a football player are pretty strenuous. You're over there most of the day. For the coaches, add 5 hours to every night of a player, and so it's not really much of a retirement. So, my kids will be at certain ages by then, so I want to have plenty of time to spend with them.
Hey Peyton, I'm Joel. I'm a junior here. You talked a lot about competition and how competition helps us be successful, and I also noticed that through the Payback Foundation, you're helping disadvantaged children who are probably suffering from a world that is highly competitive and probably directly suffering from that system itself, that it is highly competitive and they're disadvantaged because of that. I just wanted to know how your work in the Payback has opened your eyes to the world and changed your view, and how this can maybe agree with, or if it can agree with, what you talked about with competition.
Absolutely, that's a great question. Yeah, the Payback Foundation, that's what we've done. We've tried to, for me, I had 2 great parents growing up and had a lot of great opportunities as a kid. So I've tried to, with the foundation, we try to help kids who don't have someone always looking out for them to have those same opportunities. And, the events that we have, with the kids, we have a children's Christmas party at the Children's Museum every year. I'm not sure who has more fun, the kids or me, because for me to see the smiles on their faces and for them to feel appreciated that someone is looking out for them, it makes me feel good. I know we're doing the right kinds of things, but that's the idea. We try to help programs that provide leadership and growth opportunities to kids that are disadvantaged, and it's a constant struggle, it's a constant battle, it's never going to stop. But I really feel, just being the quarterback now for the Colts, this is my best window of opportunity to make an impact on these kids. I mean, I'll continue to do it after I stop playing, but fame is a very fleeting thing, and I realize that. And so when I have this opportunity, try to do as much as I can. But like you said, it's competitive, and there are plenty of kids we can help out.
Which NFL quarterback would you say you grew up admiring the most, and which current NFL quarterback do you respect the most?
That's a good question. For me, my father was always kind of my role model. He was my hero. I was 8 years old when he retired, and so, I can remember enough of when he was playing. And it's also, in just the 7 years that I've been playing, the players that I've met, the former players or the coaches that played against my dad or coached against my dad, the way that they talk to me about my father makes me even admire him and respect his career more, playing on teams that weren't exactly the best teams, but just how good of a player he was and how he never complained. He never had a bad attitude. He played 15 years and was an amazing player. So I even have more respect and have an understanding of what he was able to accomplish. And then, from 8 years old on when he was retired, I guess Dan Marino was kind of one of my favorite quarterbacks, just a very competitive guy. Played his whole career right there in Miami, always battling and always a great player, and still lives down there in Miami today. Has been a big part of the community. As far as, the players playing today, that you respect, I mean, I guess, being somewhat of, a football player is kind of like dog years. I mean, I'm 28 years old, but I'm considered an old man in the quarterbacking world. But I'd say Brett Favre, you got to admire and respect what he's done, just playing for as long as he has, and playing starting so many games. I mean, he started like 210 straight games. I'm second. I'm only 115 behind him. I mean, it's hard to make up any ground on a guy if he keeps starting. So I have a lot of respect for that.
Hi, Peyton. I've been a Colts fan all my life, so it's pretty neat just to be in the same room with you. You're playing with a lot of people, my dad included, think this is the best offense the NFL's ever seen. But we got some guys, key guys in their contract years. What are we going to do to keep it together for a few more years?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the tough part about the NFL because the business side does come into play. And, for me, it's something that I thought a great deal about kind of during the off season, during the months. But once you get into the season, it's hard to think about anything else beyond this year. But to answer your question, I mean, our players do realize the window of opportunity that we have and how good of a team, especially an offense that we have now, and the days of building for next year are kind of over with. We don't say, well, next year will be even better. I mean, there's no talk about that at all. We talk about, trying to win this year and win the whole thing this year because, with injuries, for one thing, you never know who's going to be back. Like you said, with free agency, there's no question that, the Marvin Harrison and Edgerrin James are up for contract. It's hard for me to picture not playing with those guys, the rest of my career. So hopefully that won't be an issue. So There will be some tough decisions to be made after the season, but as a player in season right now, all the players are just focused on trying to win them all this year.
Peyton, I was just wondering if there's one word or phrase that you think about consistently on the field in a high-pressure situation or otherwise.
Yeah, like I said, I take a lot of notes, and I always, I kind of write things down. I always kind of put a star or an asterisk next to something that I think is important. And it seems like at the end of the day, every line's got a star next to it, But it seems like I write a lot of just, kind of goofy things down. But I write patience and discipline down a lot. I write it across the page. Patience, 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 patience. And it just reminds, and discipline. The discipline to, you want to throw a touchdown pass to Marvin so bad, and it's a 50-yard pass, but he just probably isn't open, and you got to throw the little 4-yard pass to Edgerrin, and it's a hard thing to do, but it's the discipline. It's what you've kind of trained to do. It's what you're supposed to do, and just trying to, and what I've done a better job of my last 3 years, I think especially is being more patient and disciplined, and then maybe in the fourth quarter, a perfect example was the game the other day. We kind of threw short most of the game, then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, boom, we hit a deep one to Marvin. And so those are the things I'm always talking about, especially, in a 2-minute drill, before the half. I mean, you got a minute to go, you got 60 yards to get, and we just kind of took them, 5, 6, 10 yards at a time. And so those are the two things I'm kind of constantly preaching to myself.
Hi, Peyton. Dave Bowsman from Indianapolis. In the NFL today, a lot of the showboating that's been going on among certain players and everything, kind of the role model they're acting for teenagers and youth. What pressure do you feel under as a role model who is well respected in both the NFL and among teenagers? What pressure do you have as being a consistent role model?
Well, all athletes are different. Some athletes just aren't very outspoken guys, and they're kind of quiet and shy guys, and that's fine. But for me, like I said, I just feel that I kind of have a platform right now and have a window of opportunity. And like I said, it's not going to last forever. I mean, I'll keep my foundation and, but after another 10 years or so, I mean, I'm not going to be as recognized, as popular as I am now. And so when I have this kind of platform and opportunity just to try to take advantage of the opportunity, I think you are a role model, whether you like it or not. And some guys are going to be more active and more proactive in that situation. That's kind of how I try to approach the situation and try to do as much good while I'm playing right now off the field.
Good afternoon, Mr. Manning. Along with the showboating question, how do you feel about guys like Terrell Owens signing the ball or Joe Horn picking up the cell phone, and how do you feel about those kind of actions on and off the field?
I don't like anything scripted, I mean, the Sharpie and the cell phone, those are pretty scripted things. I mean, I don't think the cell phone just happened to be in the goalpost after he caught that touchdown. So, I'm all for spontaneity, and I think sometimes the NFL, they've created some rules where it's taken away from the spontaneity. I mean, sometimes you get your guy, he catches his first touchdown pass against the Green Bay Packers in the NFL game. That guy's going to be excited. I mean, he may do some crazy dance or things like that. I'm all for that. That's good. But anything that's scripted or kind of preordained, I'm not big into that because especially I tell you what I can't stand is like the first quarter of a game and some rookie defensive back breaks up a pass that I've thrown to Marvin, and he's doing this, full throttle. I'm like, it's the first quarter, I mean, if you do it to win a game or something, yeah, I'm all for it. But I mean, I can tell you, when that happens, I mean, Marvin just comes over and says, we're going to kill this guy. We're going to go out there. So he just kind of do what you want in the first quarter, but be prepared to pay the consequences. So.
Hey, Peyton. How do you feel about playing under Tony Dungy, and what kind of respect do you have for the coaching staff that you play under?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's kind of the key word you mentioned is the respect that all of our players have for Coach Dungy, and not just because of what a great coach and leader he is, because of the person that he is. He's a great person, a very honest person, and he just has a very calming presence. You see him on the sidelines and kind of has that game face always on. I think that really kind of resonates with the whole team, and just staying calm in the high pressure situations. His pregame talks are pretty simple. He says, hey, let's go out there and do what we do. I mean, it's a very simple kind of motto. That's our job, just to do our jobs. You don't have to do anything outstanding or special, just to do our jobs. And so, but his calm demeanor has really helped, especially our young players that might get a little too excited. And so, really glad he's here, and he's our leader, and he's going to take us where we want to go. Okay. All right. Yeah, we've got time for, I think, maybe one more question, if we got one. So, here we go.
I want to thank you for leading my fantasy football team to an astounding 6-1 start. But I wanted to ask you, you were talking about your family and your faith. How do you find time with such a demanding career to balance that?
That's a good question. It's funny, real quick, you talk about that fantasy football. I mean, besides, can I have your autograph? That's probably the number one question or comment that I get is, going in airports, it's, hey, you're on my fantasy team, or hey, throw it to Marvin Moore. And it's funny. It's like I was flying somewhere, maybe Atlanta airport this past, maybe it's in the off season. He's like, hey man, it's like that game against the Jets or whatever. He's like, man, it was a tough game. I was like, we won. He's like, yeah, but you didn't throw any touchdowns. I'm like, man, you and I have different goals here. I'm not, but it's made for a lot of talk. Yeah, it's talking about kind of balancing your priorities. It's not easy, and just realize. I mean, football. Nobody loves it more than I do, and it's my job. And like I said, I think there's nothing wrong with along with football having a great importance to you, but it can't come before your faith and your football. And it's just trying to kind of like you're studying and homework during high school or in college is just trying to have a time and kind of have a schedule for things, and just trying to plan time where one aspect of your life doesn't overbalance and carry over into the other. But it's easier said than done. It's always a struggle, but it's just time management, trying to kind of stay ahead of things. That's kind of how I do it. Thank you all very, very much.